The truth nobody tells you, the moment you start asking questions, you've already lost her. Every "where are you from" and "what do you do" silently screams that she's the prize and you're just another applicant. Women don't fall for men who seek approval. They fall for men who command it. Today, I'm revealing 6 principles that flip attraction on its head. Master these and you'll never chase validation again. Most men fear silence like it's a death sentence in conversation. They panic, scramble for words, throw out questions like life rafts hoping to keep her interest afloat. But here's what they don't understand. Silence isn't the enemy of attraction, it's the architect of it. When you stop filling every gap with nervous chatter, something shifts. The frame flips. You're no longer performing for her approval, you're observing, listening, holding space with a confidence that most men will never possess. That stillness, that refusal to chase her attention with constant noise, it unsettles her in the best possible way. Think about the loudest men you've encountered, the ones who dominate every conversation, who can't let a moment breathe without injecting their voice into it. They're not powerful, they're desperate. They need to be heard because deep down they're terrified of being forgotten. But the man who can sit across from a woman, hold eye contact, and let silence hang between them without flinching, he's operating on a different level entirely. Silence forces people to reveal themselves. When you're not rushing to fill the void, she starts to. She talks more, shares more, tries to connect with you because your presence alone creates a gravitational pull. You become the center of the interaction without saying a word. That's not passivity, that's mastery. Here's the psychology behind it. Uncertainty activates the mind. When a woman can't predict your next move, when she can't read you like an open book, her brain stays engaged. She's scanning, interpreting, trying to figure you out. That tension, that mental investment, it's the spark that turns casual interest into genuine attraction. Most men kill this dynamic immediately. They meet a woman and launch into interview mode, question after question, trying so hard to build connection that they forget connection isn't built through interrogation. It's built through energy, through presence, through the space you create for someone to step into. Try this instead. When she finishes speaking, pause. Let her words settle. Hold her gaze for 2-3 seconds longer than feels comfortable. Then respond with an observation, not another question. You don't strike me as someone who tolerates small talk. Simple, direct, and suddenly the dynamic is shifted. You're not chasing understanding, you're offering an insight that makes her wonder what else you've noticed about her. Your words become valuable because they're rare. When you speak only when you have something worth saying, people lean in, they pay attention, they remember. Compare that to the man who talks endlessly, filling every silence with commentary nobody asked for. His words lose weight because there's no scarcity, no intention behind them. Silence isn't emptiness, it's a container for possibility. It's the space where tension builds, where curiosity grows, where a woman starts investing her mental energy into understanding you instead of the other way around. And once she's invested, once she's leaning into your stillness instead of waiting for you to entertain her, you've already won.
The fastest way to lose her respect? Start explaining yourself. Watch what happens when a man justifies every decision, clarifies every statement, softens every opinion. He thinks he's being honest, maybe even considerate, but what he's really doing is confessing something far deeper. He needs her approval to feel secure. This isn't about being harsh or dismissive. It's about understanding a fundamental truth. Confidence doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet refusal to defend what you already know is right. When she challenges you, when she tests your frame with, "Do you really believe that?" or "Why did you say it like that?" That's not an invitation to backtrack, it's a test. And most men fail it instantly. They panic, they soften their tone, apologize for having an opinion, and scramble to smooth over their edges just to keep the peace. What they don't realize is they're teaching her something critical. This man can be shaken. And once a woman knows you'll bend under pressure, the attraction begins to fade. Not because she's cruel, but because human nature gravitates toward strength, toward certainty, toward the man who stands unmoved. There's a psychological principle at work here that few understand. People respect what they don't fully grasp. When you're constantly clarifying, constantly justifying, you become predictable. And predictable is the death of mystery. The most magnetic men you've ever met rarely explain themselves. They don't convince anyone they're right. Their lives, their tone, their calmness, that becomes the argument. Think about it. When you over-explain, what message are you really sending? That you're unsure, that you need external validation to confirm your internal reality. Women read this as instability, a lack of emotional control. And while you believe you're showing honesty, she's unconsciously interpreting it as weakness. Now, this doesn't mean you become cold or arrogant. It means you stand on your words without trembling. If you said something you believe in, own it fully. If you made a choice, let it speak for itself. Because every time you explain yourself out of fear, you lose a piece of that quiet gravity that draws people in. Here's what changes everything. The next time you feel the urge to justify yourself, pause. Take a breath. Let the silence hang there for a moment. If she truly wants to understand you, she'll ask differently. But if she's testing you, your calm refusal to crumble will tell her everything she needs to know. A man who needs to be understood will always be controlled. But a man who's comfortable being misunderstood, he can't be manipulated. He moves through the world with a centeredness that others can't shake. And that centeredness, that refusal to bend for approval, becomes the very thing that makes him unforgettable. Your power isn't in your explanations, it's in your certainty. Most men are beggars dressed as lovers, chasing attention like it's currency. They text constantly, give endless compliments, stay perpetually available, all while wondering why she loses interest. Here's what they don't understand. Attention without emotional control is worthless. You can have her eyes on you all day, but if you don't move something inside her, you're just background noise. Attraction isn't built on being present, it's built on being felt. There's a difference, and it's the difference between the man she texts back immediately and the man she thinks about at 3 in the morning.
When you chase attention, you become an entertainer. You perform, you please, you bend yourself into shapes hoping she'll notice. But the moment she can predict you, the moment she knows exactly how you'll react, you've handed her the script to your entire personality. And predictable men don't create desire, they create boredom. Real power lies in controlling the emotional rhythm of every interaction. Not her schedule, not her time, but how she feels when she's around you. That's where most men crumble. They react to everything. She goes cold, they panic and chase. She tests them, they scramble to defend. She gets emotional, they try to fix her immediately. They think they're helping, but what they're actually doing is proving they can't hold their own center. A woman doesn't need you to solve her emotions. She needs to feel that yours can contain hers. That's emotional dominance. When she's spiraling and you remain calm, when she's testing and you don't flinch, when she's distant and you don't chase, that's when something shifts. She realizes you're not like the others. You're not moved by her moods. You're anchored. This creates tension, the kind that keeps her awake thinking about you. Not chaos or drama, but that delicate pole between comfort and unpredictability. She can't quite figure you out, and that uncertainty becomes addictive. Think about this moment. She accuses you of being distant. The average man immediately defends himself, apologizes, explains his schedule. But what does that do? It hands her the power. She poked, you reacted. Now she knows the button to press. Instead, imagine staying calm. Maybe you smile and say, maybe you're just used to chaos. Then you change the subject entirely. In one move, you flipped the entire dynamic. She expected you to bend, but you stayed rooted. Now she's the one feeling stirred, intrigued, slightly off balance. That's not manipulation, it's emotional intelligence. It's understanding that the person who controls the tone controls the frame. When you react to her energy, you lose. When you set the energy and let her respond to yours, you lead. Stop trying to be constantly available. Stop performing for her attention. Focus instead on being the kind of man whose presence shifts the room's temperature. Because when you can make her heart race without saying a word, everything else becomes unnecessary. The real art isn't in what you say, it's in what she feels when you say nothing at all. There's an ancient principle that separates the powerful from the desperate. Never show your full hand. The moment you lay out every intention, every feeling, every plan you have for her, the game ends. Not because honesty lacks value, but because predictability murders desire at its core.
Think about the last time you confessed everything too soon. You thought transparency would win her over, that showing your cards would prove your sincerity. Instead, she pulled back. The texts slowed down. The energy shifted. Why? Because you eliminated the one thing her mind craves most: uncertainty. The human brain is wired for mystery. When something becomes completely known, completely predictable, it loses its magnetic pull. This isn't manipulation, it's psychology. Women might tell you they want straightforward honesty, but watch their actions. They obsess over the man whose next move they can't predict. They lose sleep thinking about the guy who reveals just enough to intrigue, but never enough to be fully understood.
Most men sabotage themselves within the first few conversations. They over-explain their intentions, desperately trying to prove they're different. "I'm not like other guys," they say, then proceed to act exactly like every other guy by seeking reassurance through confession. They mistake emotional vomiting for vulnerability. They think revealing everything makes them authentic, when in reality it makes them forgettable. Power lives in controlled disclosure. Reveal the truth when it serves you, not when your anxiety demands it. This doesn't mean lying or playing games. It means understanding timing. Show her fragments of who you are and let her imagination construct the rest. Her mind will paint you in far more interesting colors than you could ever describe yourself. Watch how the most captivating people operate. They speak with purpose, not to fill silence. They answer questions without revealing their entire strategy. When asked about their intentions, they smile and shift the conversation. Not because they're hiding something sinister, but because they understand that a little mystery creates magnetic tension. This principle extends beyond romance. In business, in friendship, in every power dynamic, the person who reveals less controls more. When people can't fully read you, they must respect you. When they can't predict your next move, they must pay attention. That attention transforms into influence, and influence transforms into attraction. Consider this. Every great story keeps you guessing. The moment you know exactly how it ends, you stop caring. The same applies to you. If she knows exactly what you're thinking, exactly what you'll do next, exactly how you'll react to every situation, why would she stay curious? You've become a book she's already finished reading. So guard your intentions like a treasure. Reveal them through actions, not confessions. Let your behavior speak louder than your explanations. Because the man who reveals nothing commands everything, while the man who explains everything controls nothing. Keep your cards close, your energy calm, and your next move hidden in silence. That's where real power breathes. There's a paradox at the heart of desire that most men completely miss. If you want to be wanted, you must make her uncertain, but never unsafe. Confusion repels, intrigue intoxicates, and understanding this difference separates the men who chase from the men who are chased. When a woman cannot fully read you, when she senses there's a depth to you she can't decode, something shifts inside her. She begins to wonder, what does he really think of me? Why can't I figure him out? Why does his silence feel louder than my words? That's the moment you stop pursuing her attention and she starts pursuing your certainty. But here's where weak men destroy everything. They create chaos, not mystery. They play mind games instead of mastering themselves. They confuse manipulation with magnetism. Real control isn't about making someone insecure, it's about making them curious. A man grounded in self-possession doesn't seek attention. He commands it through stillness. He's calm when others panic. He's selective with his words. His silence isn't emptiness, it's signal. And that signal drives a woman mad with wonder. Most men rush to explain themselves after every small misunderstanding. They write paragraphs, chase validation, overcompensate with reassurance. They think clarity builds connection. But women don't fall for certainty. They chase it. The more you confirm her every question, the less valuable your attention becomes. When you remain grounded, observant, and unmoved by emotional storms, you stand out in a world of men who crumble at the first sign of disapproval.
That calm detachment becomes magnetic. It makes her realize your peace is not negotiable, and that's when she begins to earn it. Your value grows in the space between what you say and what you don't. A man who always explains himself reveals insecurity. A man who lets silence carry weight shows confidence. When you stop trying to make her understand you, she will spend her energy trying to. She'll read your tone, your pauses, your body language. Every glance becomes a question. Every word becomes a clue. This is the psychology of attraction at its highest form. You're not withholding to punish. You're creating space for her to invest. Women are wired to decode, to interpret, to solve. When you remain an unsolved puzzle, her mind stays engaged. Not because you're playing games, but because you've mastered the art of restraint. Think about the men who left the deepest impression on you. They weren't the ones who explained everything or sought approval at every turn. They were the ones who moved with purpose, spoke with intention, and carried themselves like their inner world was rich enough that they didn't need constant validation from the outer one. That's what you become when you make her chase certainty. Not a mystery for the sake of games, but a man whose depth demands attention. Desire is born in uncertainty, but respect is born in control. Master both, and you don't chase, you attract. You don't beg for attention, you become impossible to ignore. Most men hand over their power the moment their emotions spike. They argue when provoked, chase when ignored, apologize for things they never did, all because they can't sit still in their own skin. And here's what destroys them. Women can sense this weakness instantly. Not because she's cruel, but because her instincts are wired to detect which man can hold his ground when the world shakes beneath him. Listen carefully. The man who cannot govern his emotions will always be governed by someone who can. This isn't theory. This is the battlefield of every relationship you've ever witnessed fall apart. Watch how quickly respect evaporates when a man begs, pleads, or explodes from a place of emotional chaos. She doesn't lose attraction because he feels, she loses it because he's become predictable. His reactions are now a map she can read, buttons she can press whenever she needs validation or control. Rulers throughout history understood this. They knew emotion was the easiest weapon to turn against you. In relationships, the exact same rule applies. The powerful man doesn't get drawn into pointless arguments. He doesn't try winning every battle. He listens, he observes, and when he responds, it's calculated, deliberate, timed for maximum impact. His calm becomes her storm, not because he's cold, but because he's unreachable. Look around you right now. Most men are slaves to reaction. Someone criticizes them, they explode. Someone tests their patience, they crumble. Someone questions their worth, they scramble to prove themselves like defendants in a courtroom they never belonged in. They confuse keeping the peace with actually having peace. But real strength is conquering yourself before you ever attempt to influence another soul. Emotional control doesn't mean you suppress what you feel. It means you rule it. Like a king governs his kingdom, you decide when anger serves a purpose and when silence carries more weight. You understand that reacting to everything makes you smaller, while restraint wraps you in mystery. And mystery is the very seed of attraction.
A woman cannot respect a man she can emotionally manipulate, but she will crave the man she cannot shake. The one who sits calmly while she rants, the one who doesn't flinch when she tests his boundaries, the one who smiles when others would scream. That's not weakness parading as strength, that's mastery in its purest form. This is what separates power from desperation. It's not your bank account, it's not your appearance, it's your ability to remain unmoved when everything around you, or the woman in front of you, tries to knock you off balance. Because the man who reacts gives his power away, the man who observes keeps it, and the man who stays calm when everyone else is losing their mind, he becomes unforgettable. Power doesn't begin with control over others, it begins the moment you stop letting your emotions control you. Most men have it backwards. They think attraction is built through effort, through doing more, saying more, being more available. They believe if they just work hard enough at conversation, if they ask the right questions and give the right compliments, eventually she'll see their value. But here's what years of observing human nature has taught me. The harder you try to be seen, the more invisible you become.
True power in attraction doesn't come from what you project outward, it comes from what you hold within. When you walk into a room carrying complete self-possession, when your value doesn't fluctuate based on who's watching or who's responding, you become magnetic without trying. This isn't a technique you can fake, it's a fundamental shift in how you see yourself in relation to the world. Think about water for a moment. It doesn't force its way through obstacles, it doesn't announce its power, yet given time, it carves through mountains. That's the energy of a man who's mastered himself. He doesn't need to dominate conversations or prove his intelligence. His presence alone shifts the atmosphere because he's not seeking anything from anyone. Women can sense this immediately. They've spent their entire lives around men who perform, who angle for approval, who shape themselves into whatever they think will earn affection. When they encounter a man who doesn't need their validation, who remains centered regardless of their response, it creates a psychological disruption. Suddenly, the usual dynamics don't apply. She can't manipulate what she can't predict. This is where most dating advice fails completely. It teaches men to be better performers when what they really need is to stop performing altogether. The scripts, the routines, the memorized lines, all of it reeks of insecurity. A woman's intuition cuts through that instantly. But when you speak from genuine self-knowledge, when you're not auditioning for her approval, your words carry weight because they're not designed to impress. Listen more than you speak, not as a tactic, but because you genuinely understand that your internal world is richer than any external validation. When you do speak, make it count. Let silence breathe between your words. Most people fill empty air because they're uncomfortable with stillness, but discomfort is where growth lives. The man who can sit in silence without fidgeting, who can maintain eye contact without needing to break tension with jokes, that man understands something profound about human psychology.
Your strength isn't measured by how many women you attract. It's measured by how little you need attraction to feel complete. Paradoxically, this is exactly what makes you irresistible. When your peace isn't negotiable, when your self-worth isn't up for debate, you become the rarest thing in modern dating, a man who cannot be moved. And that immovability, that quiet certainty, is what transforms casual interest into genuine fascination. Power isn't given to those who chase it. It belongs to those who've already claimed it within themselves. You've been taught that connection requires effort, that you need to earn a woman's interest through constant engagement. But the men who truly captivate don't beg for attention, they withdraw it strategically. They understand that scarcity creates value, and silence carries more weight than 1,000 desperate words. Starting today, stop performing. Stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned your transparency. Stop filling every pause with nervous chatter. The world respects what it cannot fully grasp, and women are drawn to men they cannot easily decode. Your next conversation with a woman is a test of everything you've learned here. Will you default to asking questions like an interviewer, or will you make observations that command her focus? Will you chase her approval, or will you remain so grounded in your own worth that she begins chasing yours? Remember this, attraction isn't democratic. It doesn't reward the nicest or most accommodating. It bows to the man who needs nothing from it. Master yourself first, your reactions, your emotions, your need for validation. Everything else follows naturally. The greatest seduction isn't what you say. It's who you become when you realize you don't need to say anything at all. Now go apply this wisdom and watch how differently the world responds.